Do a postmortem to figure out what happened. Like, what was the reason that it fell through? Was it a reorg? Did they find someone internally? You're going to, once you identify the reason why you lost it, you will probably start noticing the signs that you could have caught on. And by just simply reflecting, next time that something like this starts happening, your brain's going to be like, hold on, this is giving the vibe that I got from that one search. And then you can be like, okay, last time something like this happened, I'm getting a very similar vibe here. Intuition is a very real thing.
Initiating becoming a hiring machine sequence in 3, 2, 1.
Hello, Vivien. Welcome back for our deep dive series that we were talking about with ratios. Even though, fun fact for anyone listening, Vivien's never seen the movie Hook before because I was like, ratios. Do you want to throw back to Rufio? And she was like, I haven't seen that. So for anyone who loves that movie, like me, there you go. For anyone who hasn't, go watch Hook and then give Vivien a hard time when you watch it before she does.
In my defense, I grew up in Germany in the 90s. Not every single movie made it over to the United States. And the ones that did come over get translated. So some of these like inside jokes, they weren't translated the same way.
Fair.
I learned that the hard way with
Fair.
Harry Potter when I reread it or rewatched some of like the Disney movies I grew up on in English, and I was like, wait, this is hilarious.
This is very different.
But there's no one-to-one translation to foreign languages. So
Yeah. Well, you get a pass until we finish this series, and if you haven't watched Hook by then we'll have a chat. Anyway, ratios. So as we said, we were going to do a deep dive into some of the very common ratios that we definitely recommend that we unpack. So today we're going to get specifically into the ratios of job orders to placements. So Viv, ratio queen, tell us about it.
all right, let's do it. All right, short answer, there is no ideal ratio for job orders to placements just because it varies so much. There's industries that banking comes to mind. Banks only work through VMS systems, through approved vendors. All of their open job recs, they get pushed into a VMS. And then it's like the Hunger Games. It's just every agency that is approved, every recruiter that is approved, they go after that job. So if you are in the banking industry, the number of job orders that you get, that you are allowed to work on, that you, if you make a placement, would get paid on, that's what I call like a qualified job order in its simplest terms. That ratio is going to be insane. Just because you have access to hundreds if not thousands of open job recs, does that mean you're going to fill every single one of them? No. So your ratio from job order to placement is going to be like 100 to 1, and that's just going to be normal, and you have to live with that. You have to know how to manage that. There's other industries that are very niche where you're probably, the ratio is going to be different. It's going to be like 3 to 1, 2 to 1, very close to 1 to 1. So the range for this ratio is absolutely insane, just because what is the industry standard? How do you go about getting these job orders? And what is your relationship with them? Is this an exclusive search? If you only get exclusive searches, meaning nobody else is working on it, not even internal HR, your odds of filling that one are much greater. And if this is your business model where you're getting just exclusive job orders, it's going to be very close to 1 to 1. Whereas if they like shop around, they get a bunch of different recruiters, it's probably going to be closer to like 3 to 1, 5 to 1. And that's just going to be normal. So know your industry, know who else is working on this. So not even just like maybe another team member, but internal HR, any other recruitment agencies. Is the hiring manager still accepting LinkedIn DMs from potential candidates? So those are all these types of things that just flow into that one.
Okay. And I think that's where this is a good one. It's like, yeah, what's industry best? It's like, it's good to know, be aware of it. But like you said, there's so much nuance to it where I think what I have a feeling you're going to recommend is probably something more along the lines of just like, if you understand your benchmark, that's probably what you want to know, because we just want to improve it. How do we go about making that better? So yeah, I guess when we start to think through that lens, how would you approach it?
So you have to look at what is the common theme across all of them? Because if you're a tool over the place, you're working with banks via VMS here, but you're also reaching out to other financial institutions that are more local, more smaller, like financial consulting firms, where you can have that exclusive one-to-one agreement. You're not going to be able to find like a common thing. So you have to double down wherever you are. If you are in like the VMS type world where it's like crazy it's like the Hunger Games. You're going to figure out a system where you know these are the types of recs that I thrive in, or this is the type of method and approach. And then once you've narrowed it down, honed it down within that particular section of madness, then you know what your ratios are. If you are on a more exclusive kind of situation, especially with executive search, those are usually very confidential. They don't like working with multiple different teams. And so your ratio is going to be much better. And with executive search, it rarely falls through due to a reorg or something like that. Like, they will keep you in the loop for this. It's very rare that this type of stuff falls through. If it's more like middle management, like mid-level career, this is where you can lose it to an internal referral, or they changed their mind, they figured out a way to live without this role and they did like a mini restructuring, or somebody just absorbed it. So you have to know what it is that you do and really hone in on a specific method. If you do too many different things, it's going to be difficult. So you can do an exclusive search, but also have something where maybe others are competing. But if it's in a specific niche where you know the candidates, you're highly specialized in that particular thing, then your ratios are going to be much better. If you're all over the place, one day you're working for a role that came in through the VMS for the banks, another time you're working on registered nurses, you're too all over the place, your ratios are never going to work, and that doesn't help. So you really do have to work towards a niche that where you notice, I'm thriving in this. This is also something that I'm very knowledgeable in. This is something I enjoy. I figured out a system to make this work and this excites me. Double down on that, and this is where the ratios matter. Because if you do it from one niche to another, from one way of doing it to another, it changes the nature of the search, which changes your ratios ultimately as well.
Yeah. And as you're saying that, something similar, like marketing and business development, you see it all the time where we try to compare how do you get new clients, and you look at different channels, email, webinar, LinkedIn, and the conversion rates are wildly different of them. And I see something similar here where, say you do serve multiple segments, banking versus high-end finance, or retained versus contingent. Just calculate those separately and use that for yourself. Because if you group it into one average, it's like you said, it's not helpful at all. It's average of a bunch of irrelevant, unrelated variables that it's not going to tell you anything. So if you are saying, I have to do it in multiple industries, I have to do this by multiple search types, just break those out, because that's the only way that you're going to have something meaningful or helpful.
Yeah. And the level of the role also matters, because the higher up you get, like at C-suite, there's very few people that you can even submit for consideration for that role. So your ratios should be very low. Whereas if you are looking at like registered nurses or travel nurses, there's a lot of them out there. You're going to have to, that's a numbers game. So your ratios are going to be like, okay, I know I have to submit at least 10 to get one to interview, just because 5 of them might already get an assignment before the end of the day, just because it moves that quickly. Whereas with executive search, you might submit 3, all 3 might actually interview, and you have a 1-to-1 ratio. But the amount of effort it takes to find those 3 is probably the same as finding those like 10 to 100 nurses that you need to submit. So the effort required is very, very similar, but your ratios are going to be very different. So just keep that in mind.
Okay. One tip, if you had to say, to improve this ratio, say you did hone in, like you've picked your niche, you figured that out for whichever, you can pick the example you want to use here, but like how would you improve that rate?
Do postmortems. So every time that something doesn't go, you lose a search, especially if it's one that is very important. If you're like in the bank VMS space, that's very normal. Just keep it moving. There's really no postmortem to make. But if you get invested enough where you have spent a substantial amount of time and then something happens and you lose it, do a postmortem to figure out, okay, what happened? Like, what was the reason that it fell through? Was it a reorg? Did they find someone internally? Did they just change their mind, or did they ghost me? You're going to, once you identify the reason why you lost it and you review everything back and take a step back and try not to take it personally, you will probably start noticing the signs that you could have caught on. And by just simply reflecting, next time that something like this starts happening, your brain's going to be like, hold on, this is giving the vibe that I got from that one search. And then you can be like, okay, last time something like this happened, I'm getting a very similar vibe here. Let me see if I can like pry a little bit to figure out what's going on, because like intuition is a very real thing and gut instinct is a very real thing. If you're getting some kind of hunch, it's probably because on some level, subconscious or even conscious, your brain is picking up on the same pattern and signals, and it's just not sure how to phrase it to you, so you get a vibe.
Yeah.
Listen to it and see if you can pry. And if you don't know how to even broach that conversation, AI is a really great soundboard for this.
Yeah. This is learning. This is called learning. Same input encountered. Did you behave differently the second time? If you are, yes, you've learned. Congrats. If you haven't quite learned a lesson yet. So I love that. Okay. Well, quick, easy, good one. Part 2 of what will be, I think, our 4-part series on this. We'll find out however many we get through, but yeah, this was helpful. Appreciate you coming on to shows with us, Viv.
Awesome. Anytime.
All right.
I'll see you guys next week.